Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica.
So it is that time again. It is time for our 1 minute book recs. This is where we go over all the books that we read this week with 1 minute synopses. I did it right.
Yay. Yay for you.
Yay for me. Okay, but before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We are still doing our Road to 1K giveaway. The next level is 500. So Mandy, backwards.
It's backwards.
What do they
You
get?
could win this dark romance bag. It's not a bag. It's a cinch
sack.
I can't say that word, cinch sack. Full of awesome goodies like this A.L. Jackson notebook. And Jessica.
And we're also including a copy of Anna Huang's Twisted Love, along with many, many other fun swag items that are going to be in there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you are following us on Instagram. That is linked down below because you get an extra entry when you follow us on Instagram. And we'll be doing that drawing, like I said, at 500. Mandy, how was your reading week?
It was pretty good. I read 11 books this week.
Good job.
Thank you. How many did you read?
That sounds so professional. I read 9 books this week, but we're going to talk about... Yay, Mandy!
I beat you.
You did beat me. We're going to talk about... I read 9, but we'll talk about 8 because one was a duet.
I will talk about 8 because one was a 4-book series that you have to read in order.
Okay. Oh, look at my little bookworms. Aren't they cute?
Those are
They're supposed
cute.
to be caterpillars. I got them from work, but they're little bookworms, and so they're gonna stay up on my books. Oh, I guess you can't see that one. Like, how cute are those little boogers?
They're adorable.
They're adorable. Okay. Anyhow,
ready for my first book?
Born ready.
I am still working my way through the Happy Cat series. So I read Happy Cat number 4, which is called Humbugged. It is a Christmas themed book. And this is about Noel and Clint. Clint is only 24 and he's a Marine. He's home on leave. And Noel is 31. So we have a little tiny bit of a reverse age gap, but not really. Noel is new to Happy Cat. She's she had a bad relationship, so she picked up and relocated to Happy Cat, where she is trying to run a bakery, and she is crushing on Clint. But Clint is a Marine, like I said, and her father was a Marine, and she does not want to be in that military life where her spouse is gone all the time, or boyfriend, that sort of thing. So again, this is Happy Cat, so everything is a little over the top and ridiculous. There is a goose that plays a huge role in this. There's a reindeer. It's corny, but it's just a really fun read.
Yay, you beat the
timer! Go read Happy Cat. Oh dear. There we go.
Okay. All right. That was awesome. You beat the timer.
I did.
Okay.
Doesn't happen often.
So for my first read, I read what everybody and their mother has been reading lately. So Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So this is a fantasy romance. This is about Violet and Xander, or Zayden. I just know it starts with an X. I always mess that up. It's Zayden. So Violet, I heard this described as divergent with dragons, and that's exactly what it feels like. So in this world, you have different groups. And so she was supposed to join the mage group, like her father, or the mage fraction, or whatever you want to call it, the mages. She was supposed to join them. That it was supposed to be her job. Her father recently died a year or two ago, maybe a little bit further back. I can't remember, but her father died. And her mom is the commander, or she's the big general of this dragon force. And so she decides that Violet is going to join the dragon force, whether she likes it or not. Zayden's family they had a rebellion against the king, or the rulers of this world. They're like outcasts, and so they're having to, I don't know, repay their dues. Anyhow, he doesn't like her. It's an enemies to lovers. He says he's going to kill her. The whole 9. There's dragons involved. Oh, but it was so good. It is the first. There's another one that will be coming out. Just, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's worth all the stars. There's a reason why everyone is loving this book. So damn good. Violet's weak too. She's not as strong as everybody else, and she's never had the training. And Rebecca Yarros is not afraid to kill off major characters. Just FYI. So.
Well, I hope that wasn't a spoiler.
Oh, no. Everybody knows that. I've seen that all over.
Okay.
Okay.
So my next book, I finished off the Happy Cat series, and I think I forgot to say that this is by Pippa Grant and Lily Valentina. Valente. Every time I butcher that, I'm so sorry. So this is the last book in the series. It's a novella, so it's a pretty quick read. It is about Savannah. We meet Savannah in the very first book. Savannah has relocated to London where she's working as a nanny for Colin to his daughter Beatrice, and she left behind like a really messy divorce. And so she, over these years, has really fallen in love with Colin, but Colin, little does she know, actually reciprocates those feelings, but he doesn't want to be that cliche of hitting on the nanny. And because Savannah and Beatrice have such a great relationship, he just puts a stop to it. And he's like, well, actually, like when Beatrice is like in 6 more years, I can tell her how I feel, like that sort of thing. So Savannah just decides she can't do this anymore. So she just leaves, goes back to Happy Cat and leaves him a note, and Colin follows her to Happy Cat. It really just ties up the whole series really well. We still get to see George Clooney, the raccoon, and all the other crazy things that are going on in Happy Cat. It's fun.
Cute.
And again, I mentioned this last week, 1 Audible credit gets you all 5 books on Audible. So it's a great deal.
That is a good deal.
For the box set.
Yeah. Okay. So I was in a bit of a book slump after reading the 4th Wing. I was in a really bad one. So I actually pulled out Planet Barbarians because it can pull anybody out of a book slump. This is like my 80th time reading this book, I swear. So, well, not 80th, but you guys get what I mean. So this is the original Planet Barbarians. This is the first book. This is Georgie and Bechtel's book. Georgie is a human who gets abducted by bad aliens and taken into space with a bunch of other girls, and their ship crash lands on a giant ice planet with big blue aliens that rescue them, and they have to have this symbiont, they call it their Kui or their Cootie, to survive. And when they have those symbionts, when they recognize their mate, they rattle off, and then everybody has to mate and make babies and all the good stuff. This is good. This first one's a little bit darker than the rest of the series. Ruby Dixon only intended to write the first one, and then it took off, and so she wrote more. So this one definitely has some triggers in it, so check your trigger warnings. But it's always a top fave. It's a favorite of mine.
I don't understand how that's a palate cleanser, but okay.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't. All right.
Okay.
So my next book, Jessica, is Sugar Daddies by Jade West, which you had me read as part of our Convincing My Bestie, which you will be able to see later this week.
Yeah.
So I will do my 1-minute synopsis, but I won't tell you how I liked it. Go watch Convincing My Bestie on Thursday and check that out.
Yep.
All right. Sugar Daddies. This is about Carl and Rick, and they're looking for a sugar baby. Is that right?
They are.
So they use the Sugar Daddies website. Katie uses the website because she's really desperate for some money. And so this is a website that kind of hooks you up with a sugar daddy. So she decides to do it. It's very out of character for her, but she's desperate for money because she has a horse. She's wanting to buy this land where her horse is currently boarded. So she goes and meets with them. And that's kind of where the story takes place. Now, if you look at the cover of Sugar Daddies and you just know what it's about, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like the smuttiest read ever. So basically you show up to this book for the smut and you stay for the excellent writing and the plot and these characters. So while there are definitely smutty scenes, this book is way beyond that with a really great plot because Carl wants a baby and he wants a baby really badly. And Rick also wants them to have a baby, but Rick is a little more like slow down where Carl's like, whoosh.
Yep.
So how's Katie going to feel about that?
Yep. Yeah.
All right, Jessica.
Okay. So I read a really popular book next, and I'm sorry, guys, this does not do it for me at all. So this is Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. This is a special edition. I'm going to just put this on Pango when we get done. But anyhow, this one, I gave it 2 stars. I don't get it. I really don't. This is a retelling of, it's an Aladdin retelling, but it's Jasmine and Jafar, which is fine. Totally fine. But it's very heavy on the BDSM aspects. And I just come to realize that's not my bag. I don't get it. It bored me to tears. Jafar kills her dad, then takes her to be his, and even though it had those elements, it just didn't do it for me. I don't get it. I don't get the hype around the book. I just don't. So that's that.
Wow, you still had 20 seconds left.
I know, but I can't. It just didn't do it.
All right.
Yep.
My next book is Hate Notes by Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward. This was a 4-star read for me. I was expecting it to kind of knock my socks off and be more of a 5-star read, but it was a 4-star read. So I still really liked it. It is about Reed and Charlotte. I think maybe Charlotte, I just had a hard time connecting with her a little bit. Maybe that's what it was. Or maybe I've read too many Vi Keeland books. That could be, I don't know. Anyways, Charlotte's fiance and her have broken up because he cheated on her, and her entire world was intermingled with her fiance. So she's kind of like starting over a little bit, and she takes her wedding dress down to like a bridal shop to get rid of, basically. And she finds this other dress there while she's waiting for the lady to appraise hers that has a note sewn into it. And she's like, oh my gosh, how could this wedding dress end up here when this man loved this woman so much? Because she's just blown away by this note. So she goes home and she does like what most of us would do, I assume. She Googles the guy, finds out who he is. She's drank way too much, and she sets herself up an appointment to go look at one of his like $1 million apartment listings. And that's how the story starts. I think part of what's a little bit difficult for this one is you really have to kind of use your imagination, because of course they don't get off on the best of foot, because Reed's pissed that she's wasting his time looking at this apartment. She gets very upset by how he treats her and runs into his grandma in this apartment building, and the grandma offers her a job. And so then she ends up working with Reed. So you have to kind of be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, to kind of get a little bit further, but it was still really good.
Okay. All right. So I then had to have yet another palette cleanser because I was so done with books this week. So I went back to Ruby, good old Ruby. Barbarians Touch. This is, I don't know, this is like the 8th or 9th book in the series. But this is Lila and Rokan's book. So we've seen Rokan throughout this whole series. He's the one that has the knowing sense, is what he calls it. And Lila and her sister are found in another spaceship that had crashed there in book 3. Crashed in book 3. And they go and wake them up. And when Lila wakes up, she's deaf. She had a ear implant several years before this, but it is missing when she wakes up. So she can't hear, and she's trying to survive this ice planet with these big blue guys that she can't hear. Luckily, her sister is with her for the majority of the beginning of the book to translate and to talk for her, translate to her. But then she gets kidnapped by one of the other aliens, and not Rokan, who's going to be her mate. So, yeah, is what it is.
All right. Well, I went to Christmas next.
Ooh.
So I did Once Upon a Christmas Carol by Karen. I'm probably going to say this wrong. Shaler. This was 4 stars for me. It's on Audible. It's an Audible original, so you can listen to it for free, which is nice. It's a pretty quick listen. This is about Rachel. Rachel is left her hometown in Washington, and she is a big music star, but she's kind of getting to the end of her career where she needs to make some decisions because her demographic is no longer her demographic, if that, like, she's kind of aged out of it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So she starts getting these Christmas cards in the mail with a it's a Christmas Carol, which I really like. So it takes a Christmas Carol and it basically like is a little bit of a mystery. And so she's trying to figure out who sent these to her because they want her to come home for Christmas. So she goes ahead and comes home, and then she keeps getting these cards with the Christmas Carol, and like it's like a scavenger hunt type thing. And she's trying to figure out who is doing this. So it's a really fun Christmas listen.
Okay.
In June.
In June. It's all good.
Mark it down for your Christmas pleasure. And
exactly. In December. That's right. Exactly. Okay. So I'm still going down the crappy reading train at this point in the week. So I read Grimm by M.K. Edom. I should have known. This was 2 stars. Good Lord. Look, I liked me some sci-fi alien romance, but this did not do it. This thing has high scores, and I could not figure out why. This is about Lisa. She's like I think she's 26 or 28. She's a young widow. Her husband died a year before, and she has 2 little girls at home. I think they're like 4 and 2. They're very young. Grimm is the king of this planet, and they're looking, him and his crew are looking for women because they need women to breed with, obviously. And he just picks her up, and she insists that she'll go with him, but she has to go back and get her girls. So they go back and get her girls, and then he takes her to the planet. This woman accepted everything, like, oh, you need a mate? Okay, I'll do it. Oh, you want my children to come? Okay, I'll do it. There was no fighting the situation. There was no, like, this ain't cool. She was just like, oh, you're aliens? All right. Oh my gosh. It wasn't like, oh, you exist. No. Just, I probably should have given it 1. But I can't do that.
All right, Jessica. So after your not so great read, I'm going to follow that up with my not so great read.
Okay.
Okay. So my not so great read is Sexy as Sin by W. Winters. And this is about Kat, Killian, and Reed. So Killian is part of an MC group, and Kat's his girlfriend. They are young. They're like right out of high school, but yet he's the VP of the motorcycle club, which I thought was odd, but his dad's the president, so whatever, I'll go with it. They're just this big, happy family. They are totally in love, and then the police bust the clubhouse, and Killian is the only one that ends up going to prison, and he takes a fall for something because he wouldn't name names. So we fast forward 4 years later, and he's now getting out. Him and Kat maintain their relationship for like their first 3 years of him being in prison. Something happens. We don't know what that is, and they haven't talked for a year. But when Killian gets out, he lists her house as where he's going to live, and he goes there. The book sounds like it should be pretty good, but it takes so many. For one, it's super obvious why they're not talking to, like, why she feels guilty and stopped talking to him. Like, that's super obvious. It's very, very predictable. But then it just keeps, like, the book it's less than 200 pages, but it keeps adding all these different things to it. And by the time it was like, it was like the author was just checking, like, I want to have this happen, this happen, this happen, and this happen. And she included way too many different things in such a short book. So the character development wasn't there. At times they would have painstakingly long conversations, and then we would just jump forward. I just couldn't get into it. And I didn't like, I would call them twists and turns, but it was super predictable of what was going to happen. And so when they would happen, I was just like, oh, seriously? Like, yeah. So I still rated it a 3. Like, it wasn't horrible, but I just didn't care for it a lot. So maybe I shouldn't have rated it a 3.
Don't you hate that when you question yourself after you've done it? So I'm sitting here going, yeah, because W. Winters is Willow Winters.
Yes.
And every book I've read of hers has been like that. Plus, they're all about 200 pages, and then they're part of a series, and then you have to wait forever for the next one to come out. It's like it's constantly having to purchase a new book to finish it up. And she's not for me. I've tried. Yeah. It doesn't work. So maybe someday. All of her books feel chaotic like that to me. I can't.
Yes, chaotic. That's a great way to describe it.
Chaotic, yeah.
Like, something and go with it.
Exactly. So with my next read, my week started to go back up. We're getting up there. So I read Chasing Her Fire. It's by Claire Kingsley. This is the 5th book in her Bailey Brothers series. I haven't read the first books. I want to go back now after reading this one because there is like an overarching theme that happens in this book, or these books. There's things that happen, but it still didn't throw it off. I was still able to read it as a standalone. So this is about Logan. He's a firefighter in this small town. And then you have Kara, and I'm calling her a socialite because that's what she feels like. She came from money. She moved to this little town because she loved it. But she really doesn't do it. Like, she doesn't even have a job. Like, she doesn't do anything. She lives off her inheritance in this little itty bitty town. And as enemies to lovers, they can't stand each other. They have mutual friends. Her best friend is married to one of his brothers. And one night they have a one-night stand. A total hate screw was what it was. And she ends up pregnant. And this book follows that pregnancy. He decides to move in with her to help her while she's pregnant because she's really sick. And then things progress from there. I gave it 4 stars. I loved it. There's some other stuff going on. I loved Logan. I loved the hero, like the firefighter aspect of it. We only got to see a little bit of that, but I did like it. And I like the progressing with the pregnancy throughout the book. You don't get that all that often.
No, you don't. All right. My next book is the Empathy series. So there's 4 books. You have to read them in order. It starts with book number 1 called Empathy by Care Dukey. First book was a 5-star read for me. And this is a very dark, twisted series. So I highly recommend thinking about it, like checking triggers if you think you might have any before you start, because there's a lot of twisted stuff that happens in here. This is about Melody, Blake, and Ryan. There are a lot of twists and turns. Some you kind of think might be happening, but the author is so good in her writing that you're not really sure, like, if you should really think like this must be what's going to happen next. So when things do happen, you're still like, ooh, wow. It is extremely dark. There's very detailed murder in this book. It's twisted. It has you on your toes the whole time. You don't really understand where things are going. It does end with the happily ever after in book 1. And then you go on, like, you could probably just be done at book 1. But if you go into the other books, it gets even more twisted. So if you're looking for something very different, twisted, dark, you don't mind reading a graphic, like almost thriller type book, this series would probably be for you. I really enjoyed the first book. The next books are kind of around a 4-ish. I'm not 100% sure where exactly I'm landing on those because I'm not really into like the details and gore.
These are the ones that you called me and said that you were scared. You were going to have nightmares, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, put those at the top of my TBR.
And I'm sorry, I don't really give a really good description about what's happening because you don't know what's happening. Like where everything's going. So you just kind of have to read it.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Are you ready for this? Are you ready? Mandy's going to be so excited. This is the only Karen Crompton book that you haven't read.
Yes. I have this weird thing about, like, Carrie Ann Cole's another author. Like, I have not read any author's complete works, and I always leave a couple. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Karen, when's that next book coming out so that Mandy can read this one?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, ready? So this was my first Karen Crompton book, and let me just say, I get it. I get it, Mandy. I so get it. Karen, we love you so much. Okay, this book is about Isaac and Olivia. So Isaac moved into this little town in Montana when he was in kindergarten. His mom was killed in a fire, and the fire burned the side of his face and his body. And so he has scars. He's had all the skin grafts and stuff. And because of that, he's been made fun of and treated badly his whole life. Little town, little douchebag boys and girls making fun of him. And when the book opens up, Olivia is at a funeral and their kindergarten teacher has just passed away. And she leaves Olivia her house, which is across the way from Isaac's house. And they're out in the middle of nowhere. And so this is their story. I don't even know what to say. Like, it was so good. And it was funny because Karen was like, "What are you doing to me?" When she saw that I was reading this, she's like, "What are you doing to me?" There is no spice in that book, and it is not dark romance. And I was like, well, we'll just see about that. So I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I just wanted to take Isaac home and love on him. And he's total grump, you know, totally standoffish. He hides behind his hair. He has long hair, so he hides that, you know, he hides from everybody. He's a recluse. And Olivia is just, she's there. She's there to pull him out of it. I freaking loved it. And when I say there's no spice, there is a spicy scene. It's not open door bedroom scene. It's it brushes over it, but it doesn't matter. It was just that good. So Broken Hero, you guys got to go read it.
I'm glad you loved it.
I did love it so much.
I want to read it. It's on my bookshelf. I own all of her books. I've read the other 4. I don't know what it is. It's a weird thing about me. Ooh, maybe that's my toxic trait.
Ooh, maybe.
Have you seen those? The toxic trait, my toxic trait is.
Yes.
Okay. So my last book is Until I Get You by Claire Contreras. This is marketed as dark. It's not nearly as dark as what I just talked about, but it definitely has dark elements. Let's say it that way. So this is about Lachlan and Lila. Lachlan is a hockey god at the college that they're at. They're getting ready to graduate, but there's no on-page hockey. So if you're reading this thinking like, ooh, it's a hockey romance, it's really not. It's more just like a check of like who he is, sort of. He meets Lila and there's this instant connection between the two of them. Lila's very closed off and she doesn't really have a lot of friends. She doesn't like to go to parties or anything like that. And Lachlan is your typical hockey bad boy who has a new chick whenever and isn't interested in a relationship. But for whatever reason, these two have this instant chemistry and they hook up and they fall in love with each other. The problem is that Lila has a stalker that is a deadly stalker. And so some things happen and she makes the decision to leave Lachlan and not even tell him. She passes kind of a note to him through a friend and she goes into hiding because she thinks it's the only way she can protect him. And then 3 years later, Lachlan finds her and he is out for revenge because he's pissed that she left him.
Okay.
With no real explanation. Like he doesn't know about the stalker or any of that stuff.
This one's actually downloaded onto my Kindle to read this week while I was gone. Or just happened to download.
What?
I just happened to download it. So like that's interesting that we both have that one going. But
yes.
Okay. All right. And you gave it what? 4 stars?
4 stars.
Yeah. Okay.
I listened to it. It's a much longer book. I think it's like over 600 pages.
Okay. Okay.
Ready?
All right.
For your last one?
My last one, we're ending on an extreme high note here. So if you've been watching any of our videos, you've probably seen Mandy and I absolutely love the Surviving Trace trilogy by Calla Reed. Love it. So what I read next was Lady Golden and The Red Herring. So this is a duet. This is books 2 and 3 in her Belgrave dynasty, which takes place in the 1920s. The Belgrave plantation is where the Surviving Trace takes place. So this is about our hero from the first book, his little sister, Natalie, and his best friend, Asa. And they've always had an attraction. This book kind of goes back and forth. It's in the 1920s, but we go back to like when she was little, when Natalie was very little and had this little crush on him, and we see some flashbacks. But this is their story. When we start out, Natalie is getting off the train in South Carolina to go break up Asa's wedding. And it snowballs from there. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of angst. I'm just telling you, being back at Belgrave was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I missed this world that Calla created. It was just seeing our favorite characters, seeing ATN and Serene from the first ones. I guess you could read these as standalones. I wouldn't, because you're not going to understand why the cat is named Chandler Bing. You're not going to understand half the stuff that comes out of her sister-in-law Serene's mouth because she's from our time. So you should read the whole series to really get like the full. If I could give this like 1 billion stars, I would. That world and Calla's writing.
This would be a series I would recommend to anybody who tells me they enjoy reading. Like, I wouldn't feel that I really need to understand. Do you like age gap? Do you like this? Do you like this? Like, if you just tell me you like to read Nicholas Sparks, or you read Colleen Hoover, or you just read in general, like not even romance, I would tell you to read this series.
Yeah, Surviving Trace is what I tell everybody to read, no matter what they read. I'm like, you have to. It's historical. It is amazing. It's just, and it's amazing. The whole, she hasn't done us wrong yet. So,
no.
All right, guys. So that is what we have for you guys this week.
Make sure to check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us.
Let us know what you are reading this week in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.